Welcome to Movie Night with the Boys.
Hi, welcome to Movie Night with the Boys. I'm John.
And I'm Zach, and tonight we'll be talking about The Old Guard, a movie based off of a comic book of the same name. And basically, it just follows a group of immortal mercenaries on a revenge mission. And that's starring,
That would be Charlize Theron as Andy, or better known as Andromache the Scythian. We had Kiki Lane as Niall Freeman, Luca Marinelli as Nikki, Marwan Kenzar as Joe, Matthias Skonartz as Booker, Chiwetel Ejiofor as James Copley, and Harry Melling as Merrick. Um, Everyone knows who Charlize Theron is. There's not. Oh, sorry. There was one other person that was in the movie that I forgot to mention. She's a smaller part. It's No Than Van, and she plays Quinn or Queen.
Quinn. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I thought so. Um, so most of the actors are foreign actors. I don't know much of their stuff, but Marwan Kenzar played Jafar in the live-action Aladdin movie. I didn't know that. Um, Chiwetel Ejiofor was obviously Baron Mordo and Doctor Strange. Um, and Harry Melling was Dudley Dursley in the Harry Potter movies. If you didn't know, now you know.
Who?
He was the fat cousin, the one
Oh
that
yeah,
he lived
yeah, yeah.
with,
Okay. Oh, okay. No, no, no. I just didn't know which actor you're talking about. Okay.
which was funny because at one point I was making a comment about him and later on in the movie, and I said Neville Longbottom because I didn't realize it wasn't Neville; it was totally somebody else. But I was like so on that it was a Harry Potter actor, and I had to look it up, and I was like, shit, it really was.
Yeah. No, now that you say it, yeah, that's the dude who got wrapped up by the snake.
Yep, and almost killed by the Dementor. Yep.
Yep, yep.
So
Okay.
think it's some story time.
I think so. Yeah. Okay. So, dude, so the old guard came out 2020, fairly new, right? So the movie kicks off with Andy walking down an alley in Morocco. Booker on a motorcycle rides up, and we see their friends, and she ends up giving him an old book, right? Then Booker proceeds. Uh, Andy's like, yeah, no, we don't do repeats. You know, those are too risky for them. And
Yep.
at this point, we're still like, what the hell is she talking about? You know? So then basically Booker just says her name. He just like, Andy. And she's like, all right. And so, all right. And then so they leave and they go to the hotel, and as they're checking in, these tourists ends up they're taking pictures, and I guess she like looks and she gets caught in one of the photos. So she tells them, "Oh, here, let me go take a picture for you." And she ends up deleting that one photo, right? So
Yep.
so at this point we're like, okay, there's some kind of maybe like spies or something, you know, who knows, right? So So they go to the room and she reconnects with all her old teammates, and we get introduced to all her teammates and the rest of the cast of the movie. We have Joe and Nikki, Booker, and Andy. Those are our four main characters for right now, right?
Yep.
Uh, so they do a little bit of catching up, and they do this weird thing with some food, and they place money down and see if Andy could guess, right? Guess where the food came from, and she does it, right? I mean, I guess if you've lived as long as her, you have that
Can taste
ability,
things. Yeah. I wrote
right?
that she has a very smart taste palette.
Yeah, right. So, and then they go and they start talking about the job. We find out Andy took a year off basically, and she just feels like, they're not doing anything. essentially. Like whatever they do is not benefiting, not helping. Like it just there's no repercussions that come, like good repercussions that come from what they're doing, right? So she's kind of like, yeah, no, I don't want to do this. And they basically just convince her, right? And she reluctantly agrees, right? So
But you
so they
can tell that
go.
whole time that she's not trusting that dude, though.
Oh yeah, no, for sure, right? So they go meet up with the client, right? And he tells them about a kidnapping in Sudan, and I guess they just agree and, walk away. Jump to them geared up in a helicopter. They land and then they end up walking across the Sahara, right? They're going to this facility that has these kidnapped children in Sudan. So, across the Sahara? I don't know. I'll say however the hell I want. Um, yeah. So then by the time they get to the facility, it's nighttime, or maybe they got there before and waited out till nighttime, right? You see Nikki with his sniper rifle, boom, boom, kill a couple guards. So they infiltrate the base, right? Stealth, stealthfully take out everybody.
They
Like
were
they are,
so crazy stealthy. Holy
yeah,
shit.
yeah, they are good at what they do, right?
Those first two
And
sniper shots were so like I didn't know there was one gun until I saw.
what do you mean?
Like the first shot that took out, or not the first shot, the first two shots took out the two guards in the tower.
Yeah,
Wasn't that was just the one guy, right?
yeah.
He pulled the trigger that quick twice on two dudes. That was nuts.
Well, yeah,
I mean, they
it
were
was.
right next to each other, but that's still pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, I mean, it also depends on how quick the firing rate of his sniper rifle is.
And how much recoil there is.
That too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, they kill everybody, and then they find this room, and there's a bunch of children's shoes out front of this door. So I guess they're like, "Oh, this is the place," right? And so they breach, they enter, they realize where the hell's the girls, right? And then a whole badass like military force pops out, like militia pops out and just lights them up, fills them up with bullets, and basically we end up back at the beginning of the movie where we see all the main characters dead on the floor, riddled with bullets,
And this is
right?
us now.
Right? So basically now we're all caught up. Then we see them they all start waking up. We see the bullets start like, coming out of the bodies and stuff. They're doing their Wolverine thing, right?
Hmm.
Right? Then they get up and they proceed to slaughter the whole room, right? They
With
just
reckless abandon.
they completely annihilate everybody, and they don't even get shot again. I swear they don't like none of them get hit again after that. They just
And
fuck
they,
everybody up.
they're just so coordinated. It was ridiculous. It was like they were one being working cohesively. It was goddamn impressive.
Yeah, well, yeah, they've been working together for
A while.
hundreds hundreds of years, so I mean, it makes total sense. So
Yeah, I mean, but Jesus Christ, guns and swords, come the fuck on, man.
yeah, I do enjoy the combo. So basically, they noticed there's cameras around the room. They were filmed and they've been set up, right? Then we cut over to the client, right? And it turns out he was the one filming and he's on the phone with somebody. He says, "Yeah, I got the footage." So he's clearly working for somebody else. We're not sure who yet, but right? So then we jump back to the team. Andy's complaining. She's like, I told you we shouldn't have done this. You know, wasn't a good idea. And they need to go find uh Copley. Copley,
It's
right?
Copley.
All right. Okay. So next we end up jumping to Afghanistan. The U.S. military, they're giving out candy and stuff, and we see like the guy in charge sends our new character Niall Freeman. They send her off and they like go get me this information. So she ends up going out, getting into the house, talking to all these women. Buddy shows up. She ends up shooting him, and then she tries to like basically save like keep him alive, and she like turns and talking to the other, you know, the other soldiers that are with her, and the guy ends up pulling out a knife and slitting her throat, and then we see her basically bleed out and die. So we jump to the group. Then they were sleeping on a train. They all had this vision of Nile having her throat slit, right? So they all are like, okay, we need to go and find her, because if she could see us, or sorry, if we could see her, she can see us, right? And then she could bring the enemies to them, essentially. So Andy is like, all right, I'm going to go find her, and takes off, right? Then we cut to the military camp, right? And we see her two friends walking through the camp talking about, oh, I thought she was dead. I was holding her, you know what I mean? I was holding her throat together, blah, blah, blah. They get to the camp, and boom, Nile is awake, fine, not even a scar. She says, "Oh, they gave me a skin graft. There's why there's no scar." You know, and she gets up, and her friends are kind of freaked out and kind of back away from her, right? Creating this kind of weird, awkward moment.
Yeah.
So basically, from there, we end up um, jumping to the rich guy,
Yep.
right? Which is Merrick, and he's having this presentation. He's basically asking for funding from I don't know who, whatever. And we see Coplay's with him, and we find out okay, Coplay's working with this guy. They get into their car, they're leaving, and Buddy is like, "Okay, cool, nice movie. Now bring them to me." Right? So he's
Hmm.
like, "Okay, Coplay, bring them to me." Right? Then we cut back to the military camp where um, Nile is working out, right? She's working out. Everybody's kind of whispering, chattering about her, and so she's kind of feeling awkward. So she gets up, goes back to her tent, grabs her music, and goes to just kind of you see her. She's like shaking. It looks like she's having kind of like a panic attack. So
That's where they
she
had the
grabs her
picture of
music.
her and her friends, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I felt
Yeah,
right
back in
there is it was kind of like a friends become strangers all because of a person being different. And it's like I feel like that just kind of rekindles in a way. It's like just in general people being different causing people not to like you. All of us just it's across the board. It's a touchy subject, so it's kind of fucked up, but it's at the same time it's good to bring it to some kind of a light to some degree.
Yeah, right. So yeah, so she's sitting there, she's kind of shaking, having this weird panic attack. She puts her music on, and she calms down, right? Then these two soldiers come and tell her, "Oh, hey, you're going, we're sending you away for testing, blah blah blah." Then all of a sudden Andy shows up, knocks out the two military guys in like a split second, right? Niall pulls a gun on her, and Andy takes it away just as quickly, right?
Ridiculous.
And yeah, and then just knocks her out, right? Then we see that Andy stole a Hummer, right? Threw Niall in the back and started driving through the desert. Niall wakes up, kicks out the trunk, starts to run away. Andy's like, "Oh my god!" Turns around, shoots her in the back of the head, waits for her to wake up.
I, I wrote Andy is a beast.
Yeah, right. She's a savage, right? And then you see, when she finally wakes up, they have a small confrontation. She ends up stabbing her, right? And you know, and then Andy's just like, okay, well, you have nobody. If you want answers, follow me, and just walks back to the car. And Niles kind of standing there like, shit. So she goes and just ends up getting back in the car, right?
Yeah.
Um, Okay, so I believe while they're driving back, Andy tries to explain, you know, what's going on, like how they're immortal and she can't die. And then they go and they get on a plane, right? And Andy kind of tells her change her clothes, do all of this. And then, they get up and they start leaving. And then while they're flying, Niall starts praying. And then, Andy just starts mocking God and religion and all of that stuff. And she's like,
She
"Oh,
was
I was."
I
I
was
was once
treated as a
praised
god
as a
once.
god.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I
Like,
mean?
wow.
Yeah, so she was praised like a god as well, you
Yeah.
know. So, then they have this whole little thing where Andy goes to sleep, she wakes up, she's, tied, like strapped to the thing, can't move, and she says, like, let me go or whatever, and the guy's like, and she's trying to say, like, oh, you're not taking me to Paris, we're going wherever I want to go. And so Andy's like, okay, well, you're not going to shoot him, but I will. And then she says something in Russian and shoots the pilot, right? So pilot's dead. Niall is freaking out, and Andy's just like, well, that's cool. We can survive. It's all good. And she's like, I'm not crashing. So then she's like, all right, I can fly the plane, you know? And so she gets released. And then she's like, I guess you don't speak Russian. She's like, why? And,
I
because I
told
told
him
the
to
pilot
play
to play
dead.
dead, right? Then she proceeds. Then she proceeds to grab the gun from Niall and slam Niall on her head in one of the most badass moves I've seen in a while, right? Just and she's on her head, right? So then they have, this little scuffle on the plane, nice little, you know, close close quarters combat in the plane. Andy ends up breaking Niall's arm, breaking her leg, right? And tries to, explain, like, um basically she calms down, like Niles calms down, and she just actually starts to listen because she's like, "Oh shit, my stuff's healing. Like maybe you aren't lying." Right? So they calm down, and then, they get to Paris.
So I had three notes for that whole scene there. I wrote Andy is a beast with vodka because
Yeah, she did
she
chug that.
she was just chugging that shit. I said that she is like a legitimate walking existential crisis because of just how she's like, I've tried that whole doing good things and doing things right, and I, blah blah blah. Nothing is worth it. Like ridiculous. And then I said, Andy, this is the funniest shit. I said Andy got Niall looking like Deadpool after fighting Colossus. She was so fucked up on that plane, man. She got wrecked.
Yeah, beat the shit out of her. But that's to be expected.
Right? She's a boss
Andy's
ass
an
bitch.
outright badass. So
Straight up boss.
so they had arrived at a church in France, right? They go inside, and you see Niall is sitting down at the table with Joe, Nikki, and Booker, right?
Hmm.
And they're all kind of, trying to explain why they do what they do. They do what they think is right. They're just basically trying to help, right? We learn the backstory a little bit of, Joe and Nikki. We find out that they're from the Crusades, and they killed each other a whole bunch of times during the war. They were on opposite sides of the war, right? Then, uh, then we cut to, like, Andy. She's, kind of doing her own thing. They're all having their talk, yada yada yada. Then they tell Niles, oh yeah, go get some rest, right? So then they all go to sleep, and uh, Niall ends up waking up from this, like, bad dream, and wakes up everybody, and they're all like, "What's going on? Tell us the dream." And she ends up dreaming about another immortal who ended up she has this dream about a woman, and she says, "Oh, it was a woman in an iron coffin, and she kept drowning and coming back to life and then drowning over and over again." The group go on to explain that that was the second immortal, right? The first immortal that Andy found, and basically it was Andy's best friend for a really long time. You know what I mean? They end up telling her whole story, how, she found her, and they fought through a whole bunch of wars and whatever, and then they get captured and they get called witches, and they tried everything to kill them, and basically the only option they had left was to separate them, and they ended up throwing Quinn is what her name is, and we find out they end up throwing Quinn into the ocean in this Iron Maiden, right?
Which was
So
intense as fuck.
yeah, right. And so they said they searched for her for I can't even remember how long what they said, but it was something like over a decade. But which I think that's not all the immortals. But I mean, at the time, they wouldn't have the technology to get down there, essentially.
Yeah.
And right, so they never found her, and they explain like this is the reason why we don't ever want to be captured. We don't want anybody to know about us because basically they could lock us up for eternity. Just you know what I mean,
Hmm.
doing whatever they want. So basically, Niles storms off. She ends up going outside. Andy follows her to try and, talk with her. As they're outside, the rest of the team is raided and is captured, except for Booker. Booker is sitting there with a big ass, like, hole in his stomach, just dead.
His whole shit was fucked up.
Yeah, he was just straight dead. Well, I mean, they die and they come back to life. Um, right? And so this just pisses Andy off. Andy grabs a sword and she's like, "Wait for my signal," and just bounces. And just like,
What's the
okay.
signal? What's the signal? Just wait.
Yeah, right. So Andy goes out and she ends up fucking up this militia. She drops down with a sword
Oh
and
my
just
god.
like slice and dice. You know what I mean? Like
She
just
turns them into Swiss cheese, man. All of them.
an-
Every last one of them.
annihilates them. Right. The combat in this movie was great.
So
And
much murder.
oh yeah, so she fucks up all the guys inside there, and then Copley, he's in this van outside, and he sees what happens, and he's like, "Yeah, I think we should leave."
Yep.
Right? So then you know what I mean. Andy, Andy proceeds to go outside. She fucks up a couple more guys. We see her grab the explosives, and she blows a hole in the wall, and that's the signal. Right?
Hmm.
So Andy Niles and Booker, they leave the church, right? They drive off. And so then we end up jumping to Joe and Nikki, and they're in this armored truck, and Joe is trying to like Nikki's like knocked out, and Joe's like trying to like talk to him, make sure he's okay, and yada yada. And the one guard says some stupid shit like, "Oh, what is he, your boyfriend?" And then, that's when Joe starts to proceed to call him like, "You're a child, right? You have no idea what, me and this guy have been through, blah 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 blah," right?
I
Then
wrote the love between those two is a dream.
right? And so basically the van, like the armored van pulls up to the airport. They open the door and basically the two of them beat the shit out of all the guards in the van.
Can you get
And
these
so
chains off of us?
yeah, right? They kick the shit out of everybody and then they're just like sitting chilling in the van like, "Oh, hey, can you loosen these a little bit?" Right? So boom, they get loaded up onto the plane. Um All right, so then yeah, so we jump back to Andy, Niles, and Booker, and they arrive at this old mine from the 1150s. It's one of Andy's old stash spots, right? You see some crazy artwork and shit.
I, I wrote Andy has a 900-year-old bat cave.
B- basically, basically. So after we see them arrive there, we jump over to um, Joe and Nikki, and they're being brought to Merrick essentially,
Mhm.
right? And Merrick, he's out here. He's trying to explain, oh, you're a man, blah blah blah, and Joe's just like fuck you and headbutts the shit out of him. Right? Buddy falls down, and
What a pussy.
yeah, right? So then, Merrick, he goes off and he's like, "Okay, I've seen the video. I've seen what you guys can do." Right? But he's like, "But I prefer to see it in person." So he grabs this like letter opener, I'm assuming, and just starts stabbing Joe. Like stabs him like 7, 8 times, just like stab him in the neck twice and shit. And then see that like and then it just heals up quick, right? So then they inject them with something and they end up taking them, out of the room. We jump back to Andy's group where they're trying to find like Copley, and then we find out that Andy's actually still bleeding from a wound that she got in that earlier fight where she fucked up all those militia guys, right? So
Mhm.
so she ends up leaving, right? Then Booker and Niall are having this little heart to heart. He's kind of explaining to her like why immortality sucks. He tells her his like whole backstory, like his last child died at the age of 42 from cancer, right? And whole kind of spiel about, you know, you might want to tell your family and they're just not going to want to and they're just not going to understand that you can't just give them they and they'll say you don't love them, like this whole spiel. It was pretty sad, and it did kind of make sense, right?
Yeah.
And then we basically just from there we end up jumping back to Andy, and we see she's in a drugstore, and I don't really understand why this happened, but Andy's picking up supplies. She gets to the cashier. She pays for everything, and the cashier's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Well, she looked a little sketchy, but it was like, you know what I mean? Nothing to like warrant you being like, "Are you okay? Do you need help?"
Well, she did look kind of like a little run down, and she might have been a little gimpy. I mean, she got stabbed in the shoulder blade, so or in the collarbone. I mean,
Yeah, I know, but like her immortal, like a person who's been around her for hundreds of years, can't recognize that.
I suppose.
And this random drugstore cashier did. So basically, we jump back, and the cashier is, kind of patching her up, cleaning the wound, and, they do their little talk. And basically, she just leaves the store. She jumps in her car, and we see her start reflecting on the other immortal who actually, like, died,
Mm.
right? Okay, so we jump to Nick and Joe, and they're just getting tested on, poked and prod. Tell the doctor, you're a piece of garbage, right? Then we jump back to Niall. She's waking up. She goes outside and she finds Andy just, eating a Snickers, chilling on the car, you know,
Mm.
and she ends up showing Niles her phone, and they have this little heart to heart. They talk about their families and how she
She
doesn't
said she
remember her
forgot what
sisters,
her she
right?
forgot what her
And
sisters and her mother look like.
yeah, and she gave up on Quinn, after you know not being able to find her. So Booker basically comes out of the thing and he's like, "Oh, I have an address for Copley." So they go and they head over there, right? So they arrive, and then when they get there, they start, arming up and whatever. Andy hands Niall a gun, and then Andy's just or Niall is like, "I can't do this." And then you find out she's basically still trying to like recover from killing that guy in Afghanistan, the same guy who killed her, right? And so basically Andy's like, "All right." And she asks, she's like, "I want to spend more time with my family. There's plenty of years that I can spend with them before they realize that I'm not aging." Right? So Andy's like, "All right, cool." Gives her the keys, gives her a gun, and she drives off, right? So Andy and Booker, they head inside essentially. You see them going up the stairwell. And then we cut back to Nile, and she's driving and you see her stop, and Andy told her to get rid of the gun, so she goes to the back, starts unloading, like putting everything in a bag to get rid of it. And then she realizes that the gun that Andy gave her had no bullets. And she remembers that Booker is the one who gave her that gun. So she's like, shit, right? So we cut back to Andy and Booker, and they're, infiltrating the house. There doesn't seem to be anybody there. They get to the office and they find Copley, and he's just kind of standing there. And then Booker shoots Andy in the back, essentially. And then he zip ties her, and then he goes on to explain why he betrays her, which is basically he says if Merrick can figure out how to create immortality, then maybe he'll be able to figure out how to end it, right? So basically, I guess he wanted to die. He's kind of sick of living. I mean, it kind of makes sense from the whole spiel that he had with like that
Nile.
whole Nile, right? So, uh okay.
He earned the name Booker the Betrayer.
So Merrick shows up, and then, you know, we find out that Andy's not healing anymore. Well, I mean, everybody else finds out that she's not healing anymore, right? And Merrick shows up, ends up taking them both back to the lab where Nick and Joe are, and and then Merrick ends up knocking out Copley. Well, not Merrick per se, but like his little,
His little
secure.
toys.
Yeah, ends up knocking him out. And yeah, so they end up taking them back. We get back to the building. They get taken to the lab where, all the immortals are basically just strapped to a table now, right? And we find out that, oh, okay, yeah, they're gonna have to patch her up because she's not immortal anymore. And I'm like, how many times are they gonna keep repeating that she's not immortal? You know what I mean?
Yeah, they did lay it on there pretty thick.
So then after that, Merrick does this, how the villains do. They got to do the, you know what I mean, their bullshit,
Their monologue.
their villainous monologue, right? So he starts doing that, then he fucks off, right? Then okay, so then we jump back to Nile, and she's now back at Copley's house, right? She infiltrates and she finds Copley in his office, and she's like, "Where is everybody?" And he's like, "Who the hell are you?" So she shoots herself in the foot to kind of show that she's one of them,
Of all the you could have done, I was like, the foot. You could have done the hand. You could have
right?
done the arm. You went for the foot.
Exactly, right? So you find out that he actually doesn't agree with what Merrick is trying to do now, like, and then he shows her kind of like this little timeline thing of like the stuff that Andy has done in the past, how it's benefited the future, right?
Yeah.
And it's a
I
it's pretty cool and interesting there. I kind of wish they spent a little bit more time going over some more of that stuff,
Yeah, I
but
wrote Andy is history. Like,
essentially,
yeah.
right? And so yeah, so then Copeland is basically like, okay, like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to help you. So he ends up taking Niall to the Merrick bait like building, right? So they go, and as they get inside, you see like Niall, she's like gearing up, and Copeland's like takes a gun and he's like, I'm gonna help you. And Niall's like, yeah, no. She's like, I can walk, I'll be the one walking out of there. If you go in there, you're not gonna be able to walk out, type of thing, right?
Hmm.
He's like, I'm immortal, like I won't die. So basically, she jumps in the elevator, tells Niles to leave, goes up to the lab, shoots her way through the lab. You know what I mean? She gets lit up herself,
But
right?
she lays it out.
No, she did okay. She did okay. She's not as badass as the rest of them. That's the
for
thing.
for for a newbie for her first run
But she
through.
has but she has military training and stuff. So I
Yeah,
mean, so she
it
does
should be at
have
least
like
expected.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, so she shoots her way in, right? She finds the group, right? And then she ends up freeing them. They all gear up and basically go out and just kill everybody in the building. They just killed everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Right?
like the church all over again.
Essentially. But with every single character.
Yeah.
So the team ends up regrouping. They find out where Merrick's, held up in the penthouse. So then they split up again to infiltrate the penthouse, right? They kill all the guards. Then they finally like that scene where he killed that like the main guy, like the main guard dude, like
Oh,
when he,
Keen.
when he slammed him down on his head.
Well, dude, he shot his man in the face, in the
Well,
mouth.
in the mouth, blew the back of his head out, right?
He,
Oh, that was like that was wicked, right?
with that, what you were just talking about, I said Joe fucked Keen's life. He
Yes.
fucked him up.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Right? So then there's this elevator and it's heading down, so they think that, Merrick's trying to escape. Uh, so she sends everybody after him for some reason, and I guess Andy was kind of, hurting from her injuries, so her and Niles stayed back, and then it ends up that Merrick is still standing there holding, Andy's axe in his hands, like he's like something special, you know what I mean? So fine then okay, so finally Andy and Niles confront Merrick where they use the play dead trick from earlier, right?
Hey,
And
dead motherfucker.
yeah, and basically Niles grabs Merrick and jumps out the window with him, and they basically just fall and smash into a car at the on the street level, right? So then we see the rest of the group show up and they're like looking in the car, and this girl is fucked up. Like
You know
like
what she looked like?
she's like oh god, it was bad. It
You
was
watch
fucking
Family Guy,
bad,
right?
bro.
You
Yeah.
watch Family Guy? The episode
Yeah.
where Brian gets fucked up by Stewie for the $50 that he owes him.
No, it's like the episode of Family Guy where Brian got hit by a car. Like she's
Yeah,
fucked up. Her body is all misshapen and it's fucking cool though how like it just all snaps back into place and her hand took forever, but you just see like all like the individual bones just reconnecting and shit. That was pretty cool, right?
yeah, it was cool,
You know,
gnarly as shit.
yeah, and then so the group get together and they jump into a car, drive off literally just before the police show up, right? So then we jump to a bar and the group is all, sitting there, having drinks, I guess, celebrating that they got free. I don't know. They won, I guess. Right? They're
They
drinking at the
beat the
bar.
bad guy.
So Booker's standing outside, so like Niles gets up and she goes outside and they have this little like, heart to heart and she tells him that Copley's figured out how to like kind of fix her record and say she died in action, so her family is gonna mourn her, so she doesn't, you know, hurt them in the long run, right?
Yep, yep.
And Booker's like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna be good for the team," and then basically we cut to like Booker's now on the beach. Like I guess look, the bar is on the beach, so he ends up going down to the beach type of thing, and we see Andy shows up and she tells him basically, there's kind of a price for betraying us, right? And so in 100 years, everybody will meet you back here. So from until then, you're on your own. So basically, his punishment is he has to be by himself away from the group for 100 years, right? And he accepts, right? They say their goodbyes, right? Booker's like, "Oh, I guess I'll never see you again because Andy's not going to survive another 100 years." right? But she's like, you know, don't give up hope or some shit like that, right? Do you remember what she said?
I think it was like don't lose faith or don't be
Yeah,
so
or
sure.
have a little faith or something, right? So
Yeah.
I'm hoping maybe she'll get her powers back, right? So, the group the group basically just bounces, and so we see we see the group is now inside of Copeland's house, and Copeland's kind of explaining all his like freaky timeline shit and telling, like, look, this is how you helped everybody. Because realistically, she had no clue, right? She was just doing what she was doing.
Yeah, he
And
was like Charlie Day's thing on it's always sunny, the cigarette, the suit, and the strings.
yeah, and to be honest, he only went back 150 years, right? We know that
Yep.
they've been alive
For
way longer
at
than that,
least 1,000, if not really. You know.
right? So Andy basically tells Copley, okay, so now you're gonna help us, right? You're gonna keep us hidden. You're gonna find us, these jobs that need us, right? And he's like, I'd be honored. Like, that's all I want to do. You know what I mean? So then, we get a flash on the screen 6 months later, right? We see Booker, he's drunk, back in Paris. You know what I mean? He drops his bottle of alcohol and he's like, oh, all drunk and shit, right? So then he ends up going into his house and he's all depressed and whatnot. He gets into his house and you see him pull his gun out. And then we see there's a lady there drinking in his house. And then all of a sudden we see Quinn. And Quinn's like, hi, Booker. Nice to meet you. And then the movie ends.
I was like, wait, what? What? The fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, yeah. So it was a pretty good movie.
I
Pretty
thought so.
good.
I thought it was a great movie. So now it's time for our the good, the bad, and the meh segment. Um, I think this is going to be a relatively short one. Um, you start with your good.
For me, what I found really good in this was actually like the combat. I really enjoyed the combat. They were pulling off some sick ass shit, and like like Charlize was just fucking swinging around people like a fucking monkey. It was amazing. I really enjoyed the action in this movie, right? And choreography wasn't bad either.
No, I agree. I I'm actually 100% on board with you there. Though I wrote the acting. The acting was what was really great for me because everyone was really like when Joe was talking about how he and Nikki felt about each other in the van. Like you could feel it. Like he was delivering such an emotional delivery with his. It's an, it's not. He's not my boyfriend. This man is everything to me and more. He's the cold. He's the heat when I'm cold. You know, like just the way that was. Obviously the writing's good too, but the delivery, the passion in the words, the power in the delivery, that shit unfallible to me. That was just emotionally powerful throughout the whole movie.
Okay, okay. So, did you have anything that was kind of meh? Didn't really.
I tried. I tried. I actually racked my brain for like 10 minutes, and I was like, "Is there anything? Is there anything?" And I think maybe the only thing I can think of right now is maybe they could have given Quinn a little bit more time, like a little bit more resonance in the film because of later events. But they'll give that later if they make the sequel, which
No,
apparently
they
has been
they
greenlit.
they yeah, no, they're already in the works of putting that
Yeah. So
together. So
then,
I mean, it makes more sense to have her not have such a small part. So you're like, ooh, I want to see what happens next,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
So yeah, I got nothing for meh. Then how about you?
for me, I I honestly don't really have a meh either, right? Like, I really enjoyed this movie. I watched it 4 times this last week. So like, I
But
just
did you
yeah,
watch it? Did you watch it 4 times, or was it on in the background three and
it
a
was
half?
on 2 times. It was on 2 times in the background, and I watched it twice. Okay?
But you tried for 4.
I tried for 4, but, it was time to duel. So,
Plugging a game.
I didn't plug shit. I just said I had to duel. You don't know what
every,
I'm
every,
doing.
every
I could have been
every
out
one
on the
hour
street. I could have
ish.
been out on the street slapping somebody with a glove, and and I
And
challenge you
challenge
to a
you
duel,
to a
sir.
duel.
Exactly. So you don't know. You don't know what I do in my
Eh,
spare time.
Anyone in our generation knows exactly what you referenced when you said it's time to do the duels.
That's besides the
Everyone.
point. That's besides the point. I could have been talking about the actual physical card game. You have no fucking clue. I could have been talking about Duel Links. You did exactly. I'm not promoting anything. It could have been anything. I could have been dueling in Pokemon cards. All right, or even Digimon cards for all that matters. How about Card Fight Vanguard? All right, I play Card Fight Vanguard. All right, and I like to duel in Card Fight Vanguard. All right.
Y'all, we're not nerds. We promise. We're not nerds.
No, I'm cutting this. I'm cutting that whole section out, anyways. Um, okay,
As it's
but yeah,
there next week.
but yeah. So I don't have any meh, and for the bad, I got nothing. Maybe maybe some of the choreography was a little like that wouldn't work. Like in that first fight where the guy fucking shoots him in the knee, then he drops down and kind of like lets go of the gun but pulls the trigger and the shotgun just blows that guy away. Like that. I mean, it was cool as shit, but I mean, like that was kind of not too realistic.
So essentially, what you're saying is there was some bad CGI in there, and I
No, because that'd be choreography.
wasn't CGI'd in.
No, it's choreography because the guy did the choreography for all the motions and whatnot. So that's
Ah,
choreography.
okay. Well, then my bad is a CGI thing that I just thought about. It's the only thing that looked bad out of all the CGI things that I saw, which wasn't many. But when Joe broke Keen's neck, you could 100% tell that that was not really there. Like it immediately once he did the whole spin, it was like a computer imposed image. It was great. Don't get me wrong, but it
Yeah,
was.
I can't. Yeah, I guess I wasn't really paying attention too much to that.
But
I I just
I
oh
wouldn't
shit,
call
he
it
broke
bad.
his neck.
He
Yeah,
fucked him
no,
up. He didn't
exactly.
break his neck. He fucked it.
No, no,
Shouldn't
yeah,
have
yeah,
shot
yeah,
Nikki. You shouldn't have shot Nikki.
yeah,
you
yeah.
should.
Oh yeah,
You fucking should not have shot Nikki.
yeah, yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
overall, I would say no bad really, but you
so
do what you can with what you've got.
basically, so I assume you liked the movie because I
I thought it was
liked it.
fantastic. That movie was great.
I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah. So in total, I've put this movie on for 5 times, and I've only watched it fully twice. But
2 out of 5 ain't bad.
not due to lack of trying though. So
Other things were happening. We got it.
exactly.
The duel.
So what? So what was your highlight of the movie? Like, what was your favorite thing that in the whole movie? Like your
That
favorite scene?
whole that whole last fight sequence from beginning when Niall started going in a solo all the way through the end when they were just banging out that whole lab full of people. That it was just such a good like a whole sequence. It was probably what 15 minutes, but it was solid. That was easily the best part of the movie for me.
Okay. Okay.
Now, what about your letdown? You can I know you said there's nothing bad. Is there a letdown?
No, John. There's no letdown.
He's like, let me tell you something. No.
Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. No. So,
Shocking. Shocking.
yeah, I mean, it was it was kind of
So
hard
good.
to even just kind of think of something that, you know, that I didn't enjoy. Like, even though I didn't really enjoy some of the choreography, the rest of the choreography was just that good that it kind of made up for it. Yeah, so yeah, no, I have no letdowns for this movie. I enjoyed everything, even the stuff that I didn't like. I still enjoy it to some degree. So all in
Yeah,
all,
yeah.
great movie, great movie. So with that being said, John, tell us what we're doing next week.
So I scoured the globe and looked all around for a good Netflix film for us because that's our trend right now. And I found Triple Frontier to be what seems to be the interest of the week. If I'm not mistaken, it's Charlie Hunnam, Ben Affleck, and Oscar Isaac. So that's a good group of people. Good handful of actors. Everyone knows those names.
Yeah, I watched it once. Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk about it.
I haven't seen it, so this will be a nice little segue into something new for me after this week's something new. And yeah, cool. So I think
Yeah,
that'll be a fun watch.
yeah, for sure. So yeah, what's it called?
Triple Frontier.
Triple Frontier. All
Yes,
right.
I didn't get a year on it, but I think it's 2019 or 2018, I believe. It's a couple years old now, I think. Maybe it's 2020.
I think it might be 2020, but who knows? It's all good.
We'll find out. We'll find out
We'll find out next week on Movie Night with the
with the boys.
Boys.
Oh, before we leave, we have to do what we always do. We have one thing that we
It's
like to say.
the movie's from 2019.
I was right. Wait, did I say 2018? No, I said 2018. No, I did say 2019, 2018. So I was right. Cool.
Yeah,
Dope.
whatever.
So yeah, before we go, we have one thing that we like to do every week, and that is we've got to mention the Dynamic Duel podcast. To whom of which, without we wouldn't be here, we wouldn't have found the inspiration to do this for ourselves. Whether or not we ever get a following is irrelevant because we were inspired by two great people, Johnny and Joe, and we've been following their lead now for a few weeks, and I think we're having fun.
Yeah, I'm having fun.
So you can follow them on Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. And where can you find them elsewhere, Zach?
Uh, Go to their website, dynamicduel.com, and they have their links to everything on there: Spotify, Google Music, Apple Music, whatever. It's all there. Check out their website, dynamicduel.com.
Oh, and if it doesn't help that we've already promoted them enough, we can mention the fact that they won the 2020 Colorado Podcast of the Year award.
Yep.
2020?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 2020.
Something like that.
Yeah,
2020,
yeah,
2021.
something like that. But yeah, they were the Colorado Podcast of the Year, which is dope as shit.
So definitely check them out.
For real. Do it now. Right now. But Zach, it's been real.
Oh, for sure. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening. Deuces.
Deuces.